Good evening. It's dark already, and we even started early. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:30. Although we have a full evening, the first item on the agenda is to go into executive session, if we decide to and vote to. And so I would make the motion that premature public discussion or disclosure about the subject, which is personnel hiring for the police department, would put the town at a substantial disadvantage. So I'll make that motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All right, so it's seconded. You're taking that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then I'll have to make another motion that we move into executive session. We'll bring Anthony Cambridge with us, Joy, Renee, and there's only 4 select board members right now, under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1A of the Vermont statutes.
Second.
And again, the purpose is to talk about hiring personnel policy, I guess. And we expect to be in for only half an hour, and when we come back, we'll start the broadcast again and continue with the next item on the agenda, which is changes, any additions or changes, and public comment. So the second motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we'll go into executive session. So the broadcast is back on. We were in executive session, so I'll need a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. So we were in there for personnel issue on the police department, hiring strategy, I guess. All those in favor of coming out of executive session say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so we passed that motion. And I forgot to mention that Aaron was going to be a little late today, maybe by 7:30. He thought he'd be here. And it's something when we moved our meetings to Wednesday, he knew he had some conflicts. And occasionally on a Wednesday, he'll be a little late. So we did discuss a little bit about what's on the agenda, and he's okay with us moving forward. So the next item on the agenda is additions, deletions to what's published. And we have a couple.
We have 2. So we've got the typical annual request from Creekside Association, because that has become the hub for Halloween. And and for pedestrian safety, they request to close the roads to Creekside for vehicle traffic on Halloween night.
And there was another addition.
And the second edition is a
Liquor license?
first-class liquor license applicant for, who will be the new owner for Good Times.
Okay, so we'll add those right in the beginning?
Yes, you can do that either at the beginning. I don't have anyone that's here waiting for them, so we can put them later in
Maybe we'll do those at the end.
Yeah.
And so just before Town Administrator Report, number 18,
Yeah.
we'll do a liquor license application for
It's
Good Times, doing
well,
business as
it's
Good Times.
doing business as Good Times. Yeah, I have it in here.
I forget the name. I have it maybe here
Something
too.
hospitality, TC
Yeah,
Hospitality,
TC
I believe.
Hospitality.
Yeah.
And the second one was
The second one is the Creekside
the
closing.
Creekside road closing. So
Yeah.
we'll move that to right after number 10,
Yeah.
the budget status.
And I have
So-
motions for you
Yeah?
down there.
And then next item is any public comment of something that's not on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll just jump right into the next item. And this is Josh, and your last name, Leakey?
Lecky.
Lecky. Josh Lecky is applying for the Energy Committee. Come on right up here, Josh.
Sure.
Guest of honor seat.
Yeah. So we have an opening on the Energy Committee, and Josh is applying, lives on North Road, and in your packet is the application and I think your resume in there, sort of talking about your job. So Why don't you just give us a quick little summary of, I guess, why you want to be on the Energy Committee and what you hope to do with that group?
Sure. So, my wife and I and our 3 kids who live in Hinesburg have been here for about 5 years or so. Love the town. Plan on staying here. Want to get more involved. Been looking for opportunities, and the Energy Committee seemed like a really good fit for me. I'm an energy attorney with Downs Racklin Martin with a focus on renewable generation, compliance, transactional issues. Really follow the kind of the regulatory stuff and the legislative stuff really closely on energy matters, and thought that I could bring some expertise to the committee and help them fulfill their mission and their goals.
And have you attended any meetings, or do you know, how active have you been at this point with the group? Not that you have to, but.
No, yeah, I attended a meeting last week. So,
Okay.
and I know there's been some email exchange. There's an upcoming event, perhaps over at the new battery storage facility on Brook
Oh, yeah.
Road. I actually handled the permitting on that project. So, so that's another area where I hope to be involved. So.
All right, any questions for Josh?
I have a question, Josh. I read your resume and it looked really good, and thank you very much for
Sure.
offering to help the town this way. I was curious because you listed on your resume President of Vermont Law School Christian Organization in 2013.
Yep.
So I just wanted to ask you, what was that about, and does that inform your work, and if so, how?
Yeah, so I grew up kind of going to church, wasn't really, I just kind of got tagged along, and then, I don't know, about around when I reached 30, kind of got back involved with my church, and kind of my faith became more important to me. And when I went to law school, I was looking for ways to kind of, not lose sight of that aspect of who I am, because law school can be all-consuming. So surprisingly, I found a small band of folks who were Christians at the Vermont Law School, and just we'd meet on occasion and organize some activities. And I had hoped, honestly, when I went to law school, that there'd be more opportunities to kind of that I'd use my degree more for kind of giving back and kind of in acts of service, I guess, kind of dovetail with my faith. That I haven't been fortunate or very fortunate or successful in finding those opportunities, but still looking forward. And I guess this is one kind of small chance where I can kind of donate my time and the expertise I've developed towards a good cause.
Great.
All right, so I have a couple questions. It's one I always ask. So you've been in Hinesburg for 5 years, and I'm not sure where you were before, but what brought you to Hinesburg? And you said, here's where we want to stay. So I'm just always like to hear that.
So when I first moved to Vermont, I went to undergrad over in New Hampshire at Plymouth State, moved up to Vermont. My first job was as a cable contractor for Adelphia Cable, and that was a great way to get to know the state. So I would cover, from Highgate down to Middlebury, and so I got to explore some parts of Hinesburg through that job, and kind of like the layout, liked its proximity to Burlington, its rural setting, that you're still close to kind of the things that Burlington has to offer and Williston has to offer and all of that. So when wrapped up school, my wife and I were looking to move into Chittenden County. She's a nurse over at UVM Medical Center, who's on call from time to time. She has to be within a 30-mile radius. So we were kind of limited. And I had the Hinesburg and Richmond, I'd say, was the other town kind of at the top of my list. I had lived out in Essex at one point and did the commute from there and just found it was horrible. So Hinesburg, that's another factor. I feel like the commute from Hinesburg into Burlington is much easier. You have more options. And then, the schools, the quality of the schools are really strong. I like that we have the high school right in our town, where if you're trying to, which is a ways off for us, our kids are young, but if you're trying to juggle work and high school events,
Yeah.
I think it'll be easier. So.
Oh, great. Yeah. Any other questions?
Any questions? Just, thank you for applying. I always get, I don't know if emboldened's a word, but excited to see people that, really understand it and can bring that to bear on a volunteer committee. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, we certainly have a lot of volunteers here, and everyone that comes through here seems totally qualified for whatever they're doing. And this is, again, is the case. You know, you're going to bring an interesting perspective and experience to this group, and I look forward to you helping them along, you know, in their important work, I guess. So.
Great.
I agree.
So, let's see here, we'll make a motion, maybe.
So the motion language is in your summary with the term
As soon as I find it.
expiration.
So I'll make the motion to appoint Josh Leckie to the Energy Committee for a 3-year term that would expire January 1st, 2023.
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that motion passed. Thanks a lot.
Great.
We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
If there's anything we can do for you, let us know. So,
Sure.
All right.
We will be in touch.
All right, thank you, Josh.
Take care.
All right. Next is the Hinesburg Community Resource Center. Will talk to us about budget considerations and I think maybe alternative funding approach, let's say that. So you can come on up to the stage and just announce so the broadcast people know who you are.
Sure. My name is Rachel Kring. I'm the Executive Director at the Hinesburg Community Resource Center, and Jamie Roberts is also with me. She's our board chairperson. Basically,
We have something, I think, in our packet that we
Yeah.
were given. There it is, yeah.
yeah, so I guess we wanted to come and see what questions you all have. This kind of sprang from the fact that we do an annual request to the agency review committee, and there's sort of limited funds available through the agency request committee, and we have been up to $13,000 for the past 2 years. We do all of our work on a shoestring budget. I'm a part-time executive director. We have less than one full-time equivalent program staff doing all of the programming that we offer: the food shelf, Friends of Families, Hinesburg Rides, medical equipment lending, emergency assistance, all things that are outlined in the town plan as being important in the years to come. And we've noticed a lot of changes to our services as the town develops and grows. When one new housing development had low-income housing added, we immediately started getting calls and immediately started serving those families. So we just need to figure out a sustainable way to partner with the town to offer services that we're positioned to offer. We've been doing it for the past 30 some odd years. I think we do it well. We are mostly volunteer-based. We have a lot of committed people that have been with us for 10 years or more. It's a great organization to be a part of. I'm proud to do the work, and I feel like it really makes a difference. And so we're approaching the town to see what we can do in the future. There are many different financial considerations, and right now in our budget, we're kind of spending down funds that we've carried over that were unrestricted for various programs, and that's not sustainable in the long term. We've recently become building owners last December, and that comes with a whole host of other expenses.
So the Hinesburg Food Shelf, I think one time was in the United Church basement. Then they moved to the old Crouton building and been there for 10 years, maybe?
I think 7 maybe.
Okay, 7
I think
years.
it was 2012. Am I right on that?
And were given a free lease, I guess. You could stay
Yeah.
there for free. Then the building's been gifted, I think, from Jan Blumstrand.
Yep.
Great gift, no question about it.
Yeah.
But with that now comes not taxes, but upkeep and whatnot for
Yeah.
the building. So some additional.
So electric, heat,
All the utilities.
increased insurance cost, water, all that stuff, that was all paid before plowing, because the town doesn't do that. And so we cooperate with the library and contract with a private person to plow the lots. So expenses are considerable, but it's also a resource and an asset to the town. We
Right.
hope to be able to grow. In years to come, there's probably going to be more of a demand for senior programming. Members of our board are already started talking about that. This space is also a gift. Like, could it be more of a community center? What could we do with the space? What else could we offer? We're at the point where we definitely have growing pains as an agency and sort of need to take the next step to figure out how to make that sustainable for the years to come to be able to meet the needs for the town.
So I'll just ask a couple questions. So one is when you've been funded through the agency request,
Yeah.
which the budget is less than 30,000, I think, 28 or something. And they have some policies about how much any particular agency in there, you have to be qualified, serving Hinesburg, let's say, primarily, and they allow a small incremental increase that you could ask for. So you couldn't ask for $10,000, let's say, more.
Yes.
What is your total budget now?
So our total budget now for this year is around 97,000. And it's fairly bare bones for what we offer. Most of that goes toward food and resources and programming. There's very little staff cost. Most things are volunteer run. It costs us, I think, $41,000 alone just for the food that we offer at the food shelf. Many people don't know that we have to purchase our food through the food bank. It's not given to us. So each year we have to raise funds to make sure that that happens and to make sure that families are fed, which is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm dominating it, but hopefully I'm asking good questions. So how about the store? So that is run by
Yes.
your organization. Has it been working?
It has been working. It's been profitable. We're working on making it more volunteer run and trying to get our costs down so that we can put more of that back into programming. But it's working very well. We have been profitable. We were able to budget funds from that venture this year for the first time.
Okay.
And we plan to continue.
So this request for funds isn't because that isn't working, it's just,
Right.
you'd like to request more funds, and maybe through the agency portion of our budget may not be the best place to do that.
Correct.
And
So,
Rich-
yeah, go
excuse
ahead.
me. I don't know if you highlighted this, but you shared with me is that you guys lost a significant funding source that you had in the past too. And so
We
that was
did. That was a Building Bright Futures grant that went to our Friends of Families program, and we had that funding for many years, at least 10 years or more. And then through a state restructuring, where those funds went, they went to 3 large parent-child centers in Burlington and Milton, and small towns like Hinesburg, Huntington, Jericho were just left with no funding suddenly.
Yeah.
So we've had to scramble for that program because there just aren't many funders out there that want to fund things like play groups for children or programs that are sort of open to all. They want, targeted populations and this and that, and just different things than what we're offering, but we know that that makes a difference for families. We know that being connected and having resources to ask about parenting questions, just that connection to get out of the house in the winter is super important. So how do we keep doing that?
So I think the reason, the timing that we're trying to get an answer to that question is because the agency request, there's a deadline of
Oh, okay.
October 25th to make those requests.
Yeah.
And so they need to either go ahead and submit that application, or are we thinking of another, similar to Carpenter Karst Library, and having that
Right,
be
a separate line item.
separate line item that's voted separately at town meeting?
So I assume you've looked into other sources of funding, something like United Way or?
We have, and we did submit an application to United Way, and it was not the right fit for us. They are kind of more sporadic with their funding than they have been, and agencies can rely on that a lot less than they used to. And they also have requirements for agencies to get expensive audits and things like that we can't do. We don't have $10,000 extra in the budget to meet those kinds of requirements. So unfortunately, that would come with too many strings to work for us. We have explored other grant opportunities. We continue to develop our fundraising. We have looked at any and all opportunities, and will definitely continue to do so. Our request to the town to bump up to 25,000 possibly would represent about a quarter of the budget, and we think that's fairly reasonable given the other services that are supported by the town and the rate at which those are supported. We would still be doing the majority of our own fundraising and seeking out new donors.
And so, at this point, or up until this point, HCRC has been recipient of almost, not quite half of the funding for the Agency Request Review Committee. So if we transferred that entirely, that would be, 25,000 additional.
Yes.
Or perhaps they could still submit their application through that process, and then depending on what other applicants they have this year, they'll adjust to make sure they stay in the same range, and then perhaps that shortfall, that gap, we could consider in the budget. So there's different ways to look at it and different possibilities, but I think it's definitely a conversation we should be having, and how we're, serving our community and other ways that we can support that.
Any other questions?
So there's a deadline of October 25th?
Yeah, I believe it's October 25th is the deadline. So all of the agencies that want to request funds from the town of Hinesburg, there's a application that they have to fill out. There's information on our website, a cover letter that details how to go about that process. And then they submit it electronically. And then the Agency Request Review Committee will meet in early November to review those applications, and then they'll come to you with a recommendation during the budget process.
So could you explain again what the two options are? Because I can understand how they could just apply for 25,000, but you had another idea, and I don't see how that works with that deadline.
That was just a thought for this year at least. Because the total budget, what the committee tends to give out is it's around 27,500 to 28,000, each year, and so 25,000 would take up all of that without having room for other, agencies that have important services to Hinesburg as well. So the thought was perhaps this year they could still submit that application. The committee could decide what they can allot to them, and then the board could consider the remainder in the budget this year, how we want to address that.
As a separate line item?
As a separate line item.
Okay, I see.
Possibly.
Yeah, I think
Or
that's one option, right? The other option would be to advise them, let's make it a separate item, and then the Agency Review Committee
they could adjust
would
their
ideally adjust their budget down.
Yeah.
We could do nothing, and at town meeting, somebody could stand up and say, I'd like to, increase the funds by blah, 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 and, we could have that discussion too, but it seems like it'd be better to do a better job of planning. I think, this committee is, what's asked for all the other applicants is show us how you serve Hinesburg, because they're not all in Hinesburg. And then they usually demonstrate, here's how many people in Hinesburg were benefited by whatever it might be. I think, I think we could say the Hinesburg Community Resource Center is pretty much focused on Hinesburg about 100% of the time, so.
We do serve other towns,
other
but
towns come.
I mean, the majority
Yeah.
of our services are to Hinesburg residents, and all of our emergency assistance is just to Hinesburg and St. George residents, no other towns.
So if we did it as a separate line item, we would reduce the budget for the other committee that they usually apply to?
That's a possibility. That's just sort of one of the scenarios that,
We'd need to
Okay.
advise them. They would
Yeah.
probably ask, what do we do?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so it would be up to the committee to reduce their budget, or up to us to reduce their
Well,
budget?
we're the one who decides what's going to be
Ultimately.
warned.
the committee is going to bring a recommendation to you, but ultimately the select board's going to decide what they're going to forward to the voters at town meeting.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it makes sense to me to have it be a separate line item. It's a big budget item, and it's a big necessity in our town. And like you said, there are a lot of other services that we offer to residents, and this seems like an important one. And having it as a separate line item gives it attention as its own entity. So I like that idea.
Other thoughts? Jeff?
So, yeah, so people know, I'm just looking at the town plan and I'm trying to get the exact goal that it was, but I know it's in here, just about serving the community, whether it's for, the food shelf or it's for, elderly resource centers and all that, but even, we think of it as helping low-income people, but like the playgroups for new people moving in, like I know when I moved here, it's an awesome way just to meet other parents, to meet other kids, and to get involved in the community. And it's just, I agree. I think it's a line item because I think it's an invaluable resource, and I think it's a great thing to have in this town, just from a community standpoint. So that's where I am.
Aaron, did you have any thoughts on our strategy here?
Not yet.
All right. Tom?
So, I'm not against supporting this. My question is, are you a victim of your own success? Are more people using it because it's so available? Because we've had discussions, for a couple of years now that the job market is so hot, you can't fill jobs for police, you can't fill jobs for the town road crew. Are the people being served here? Are they being pointed in the direction of a job, or is it more of a handout? I'm not as familiar with it as maybe I should be, but that's a question that pops into my mind when there's so many jobs open. Why are so many people coming to the HCRC?
It's a good question, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. So, so thanks for asking that. The families that we work with often may be employed, but may have multiple jobs and have to hold multiple jobs in order to feed their families. There are, when you're only making minimum wage and you're sort of living check to check, something like a car repair suddenly or a healthcare cost can just spiral your family's budget out of control. And we work with many families that are right on the edge of that all the time. Even if they are fully employed and employed at multiple jobs, that's still happening for many families. We live in a part of the U.S. where we have to heat our homes throughout much of the season, and other supports that are available, like federal heating assistance and things like that, and federal nutrition programs are much more limited than what people would think. Some families call us and they only qualify for one fill-up during the heating season, and they don't have it to make it through the rest of the heating season. So they call us in crisis. I can't heat my home. We don't necessarily provide job training, but we do refer people to other resources. If we knew that was a need, there are other resources in our area, like the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, CVOEO, which is a bigger agency doing some similar things to what we're doing, but they do it on a much larger scale. So there are supports there for families that need help with budgeting, job training, different things like that we can't do. I personally would love to see our agency get to that point that we can grow and start to offer some of those things to lift people out of poverty. It's definitely, we're filling a need right now, and the answers to eradicating poverty are pretty complex, especially for an organization like ours that's so teeny tiny. But I do hope that we get there, and in the meantime, I can assure you that the people that are using our services definitely need them from the conversations that we have.
And Tom, I just wanted to add that the way the food shelf works is that families can come once a month. So once a month they can come in and get a box, and we really over the years are doing a lot of proteins, eggs, we have fresh food. And then during the vacation in the summer, we have bags of healthy food for families who don't get free and reduced lunch because of the school's out. So it's really sort of, you could never, it's not like, oh, I don't need to, have money to eat because I can go to the food shop. It's like this one time, and there are people, there's elderly, there's lots of working people, or, there are lots of people who don't come until they have to too. Like Rachel will get a call of someone who needs emergency funds and they're really hard up, and it's like, you should go to the food shop, and they're like, oh, okay. Like a lot of people don't ask right away. They have to be really in a hard shape, but we rarely get a family where there's no one working, or a single person who's not working, and it's often people with children or elderly.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to come down sometime too, see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
I'll
anybody
ask-
wants a
yeah.
tour, we're happy to
So,
show you around.
I'll ask Renee, so you've got the budget.
Yep.
And, you understand the services they provide,
Right.
along with the other agencies. How do you think, what would be your recommendation? Do we break this out as a separate item,
Yeah.
similar to the library?
I think the cleanest way would be to do that, and then, talk to the request committee on, maybe adjusting the what they offer. The scenario of doing the combination was just because of timing, just making sure. I don't want them to lose sight of,
Right.
lose funding if
Right.
we don't pass this,
Right.
and then they've missed their opportunity to apply for that funding source, so.
Andrew, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to it, and I think that it's really imperative that we recognize that working for minimum wage, or, $12 or $15 an hour, if you are, a family and you have just even one child, it's really hard to do that. And I think the example that Rachel gave, if, you have a car breakdown, or, you have a flood in your house, or, there's just all these things that can happen that, and I think the real issue is that, we live in an economic climate that is just not being able to support people who are willing to work and work hard but are not getting paid enough. And it's a systemic problem that needs to be addressed. And, I would love to see the food shelf go away. It would be great to, because I think if people were making a decent wage, we all want to support ourselves. And it's really important to recognize that it's not the individual people's problem. We're here to support each other, but it's a systemic problem with the way in which our economic system is structured right now. And look, we have an incredibly low unemployment rate. And,
Which isn't solving the problem.
It is not
necessarily.
solving the problem,
Still have healthcare issues. and-
Right.
But in addition, there's so many other programs that they do offer too, that it's not just
Right.
for food
It's
and
just not a
helping
food
families,
shop,
but
yeah.
there's also the playgroups that are open to everyone. There's, I don't know if you still do the Welcome Baby bags, you have the Welcome Baby brunch, they do the clothing swap.
Yeah, yeah.
There used to be a kindergarten connection sort of transition to kindergarten. Do you guys still
We're
help with
handing that
that?
off to the school, but
Okay,
helping them to
yeah.
figure that out.
Yeah, so that's been a long history of this organization as well, as among with many other programs. So they definitely serve a wide group of people. They have under that is also the equipment lending that they do. So for crutches and all those different types of things, they have they have a lending service that they provide to for folks in town. So anyway.
So I found what I was looking for. So I'm looking at the current town plan, right? The most recent one that was written up that the select board approved. And just for reference on page 122, it's 6.8.2, work with HCRC, Hinesburg Religious Institutions, and other partner groups to enable programs and services for elders and the disadvantaged and to promote this type of thing. And it goes all around making Hinesburg a more livable place to live. And the lead is the select board, and the necessary resources are an annual budget, staff and volunteers. So this is something that we've put in our plan as an important thing, and we're saying, I'm just saying, this is something we've targeted already, and I think it's worth, it's a big resource, I think, for the town, and it would be a shame to not.
It is an opportunity to sort of break out this organization from the others, which are important, but in many cases, the amount that's given to each is fairly small. It's just, really an encouragement that, hey, continue to serve Hinesburg. I think this might be maybe the only, or one of only a couple, that are focused primarily just in our town, I guess. So I guess I'm getting, some nods to, why don't we try breaking it out as a separate budget item, advising the committee to reduce their budget, I'll say accordingly, and then have you folks, will have to come to us and say, here's what we'd like to budget, and here's our plans for next year.
So they shouldn't do the application. I'll have
Yeah.
that communication with you.
And I would think, if the town folks choose not to go in this direction, I think you can make an argument to give at least what we've been giving, and maybe not, that would be the minimal amount. I would think people would absolutely support that. So, but in this case, it's sort of the breakout a little bit, a little bit more.
Well,
to do-
I think you guys are always there at town meeting,
Yeah.
and so they can speak to it and
Yes.
support, advocate for it as well.
Okay? Yes, Scooter?
I don't like to comment at meetings like this, but I would just like to point out that my command is blatantly obvious. It's sort of a misnomer to call it this organization. It's these organizations. The number of things that they operate under the umbrella of the HCRC.
Yes, okay, very good point, yeah.
remarkable.
Yeah. All right. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
time. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Next item is item 6. And it's, people come to the select board if asking for, a zoning fee waiver request. And Alex is here. He gave us a memo about why we're in this situation on this particular project for a homeowner. And do you want to come up, Alex, and maybe give us the 25-cent story?
Mr. Keinath and I, Mr. Keinath lives at 2678 Silver Street. It's formerly the Pierce House, beautiful brick house
Yeah.
on Silver Street that he bought and has been doing restoration work on. So he got a permit for a shed. I went to do the CO inspection and noticed a covered porch that didn't look newish. And he said, "Oh yeah, we covered that when I got the permit for the original restoration work from the previous zoning administrator, Peter Erb, when he was here several years ago." And when I went back to the office, I looked in the file and said, "Boy, it's unclear from that original permit whether the covered porch was part of it." And it's clear that we didn't charge a fee for the covered porch. The fee was for interior space, but we didn't have clear floor plans submitted at that time. So I got back to him and said, "Hey, it's not clear in the permit. I can see some Google aerial photography and streetscape that sort of indicate that the covered porch was put on substantially later." And he said, "Yeah, I had done it in sort of pieces and parts." And so I said, just to clean this up, it'd be good just to get a permit for it. So if you ever refinance or sell the property, there's no question about it. And he said, "Yeah, I'm happy to do that." He said, I'm not real happy to pay the penalty of the after the fact zoning permit fee because I really did think I did this properly the first time around. And I said, as I explained in the memo, spirit of compromise, I'm happy to go to the select board and ask them not, to waive that after the fact fee. For your information, our zoning fees are set up to charge 40 cents a square foot for residential additions, and if someone's coming in after they've already built it, meaning they forgot to get the permit or didn't get the permit,
Or got caught. Or, I'm not saying this person, but if you know.
Right, then
yeah.
we charge 50% more. And we actually charge 100% more if there's an active zoning violation, if we've
okay.
noticed it and said, you're in violation. So what I'm recommending is that you waive the after the fact 50% increase in this case due to the extenuating circumstances, and given the fact that we're working amicably to solve the situation. He's in the process of making the application for that permit. Renee asked me to summarize approximately how much money we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
I can't give you an exact dollar amount because he and I are still working out what the square footage is of the covered porch. But I did a rough approximation, and it's approximately $300 if we were charging the 50% add-on, and if you were to waive that, he'd be paying about $200. So it's about $100 differential, which is significant in terms of the actual cost of the permit. You know, it's a third more, or thereabouts. But not that significant in the terms of our planning and zoning revenue, and so I think this would be a positive, thing to do for a landowner who's trying to do the right thing, and yeah, that's why I'm making the request.
It seems very reasonable to me. Thank you for working with him, and it's always nice when there can be a compromise like that both people are in agreement about. So I'm in favor of it.
Seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get many of these, so you don't come to us with, 5 of these a year. So it sounds
No.
like there's a level of, yeah, I guess, there's, I won't say fault on both sides, but no malice here at all. And just, oh, yeah, I guess let's do this to correct the situation. So it seems pretty reasonable. Aaron's okay.
Yep.
So I guess we need to make a motion to waive the fee. So, I guess go ahead,
I
yeah?
make a motion to grant Mr. Keinath's request for a reduction in his zoning fees per Alex Weinhagen's memo dated September 12th, 2019.
And then add to that maybe some more specifics
Yeah, so
about
it's-
the.
Oh, to be reduced from around $300 to around $200.
Approximately.
Okay, you got that?
I'll second that.
All right, thanks, Tom. All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. So that motion passed. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you to him for restoring such an old house.
I know. He's
Yeah,
done
it's
a
a
beautiful
beautiful
job.
job,
It's
yeah.
a beautiful house.
Yeah,
And he's working on the barn next, which if you notice behind the house, a little hard to see. It's an enormous barn that's now on a fairly small lot
Yeah.
because the prior landowner subdivided. And
Yeah.
we were all, at least upstairs, we're a little concerned about what are you going to use that barn for with so
Yeah.
little land. But he's working with a farmer who's utilizing it and trying to, has applied for some barn restoration grants
Yeah.
from the state. And
you
anyway,
can see, if you look on Google Maps, you can see the barn back there. It's
Yeah.
pretty- Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It's just
good
great
size.
that we can keep some of that stuff, and
Yeah.
people are willing to take care of it. Crazy about that stuff.
All right, next, thanks,
Thanks,
Alex. Next item on the agenda is an update on the Beecher Brook Floodplain Restoration Project. And Andrea Morganti's here, gonna give us an update. There were some pictures and I think a little memo of where it stands.
Yep.
And maybe if you just sort of say what we're doing, what the grant was, how much that was, just to sort of start.
Sure. So I am here on behalf of Lewis Creek Association that worked with the town and the Department of Environmental Conservation. This project has probably been kind of in the planning process for at least 15 years, identifying that Beecher Hill Brook, which originates kind of up on Hayden Hill, at one time was straightened. It probably crossed over North Road, multiple times. So it's what's called out of adjustment. It's moving a lot faster than it would normally because some of those curves have been taken out in an effort to probably reduce the number of culverts that were needed under North Road. And, this probably happened 50 or 60 years ago. It is the original town garage was kind of built in the floodplain. So that was a good consideration that during the time when we were considering building a new town garage, that was the opportune time to take it out of the floodplain. It had been identified in previous grants and river analysis that it would be a good idea to get it out of the floodplain. There was the winter sand pile had been stored within that floodplain area for the last 20,
And the
30.
salt.
And the salt, 30 years, the salt shed was there. So there were a lot of practical environmental reasons to move the town garage and all of that equipment, plus the erosion that was precipitated and made worse by the solid waste district drop-off center, all of that paved surface and the steep road that went running down there. So this was an opportunity to get all the structures out of the floodplain, to regrade it. And what had happened over time was the bed of the river itself had lowered. And what the goal of this is to try and slow the amount of sediment that is moving downstream and restore the floodplain so that when there are heavy downpours, the river can rise and have access to the floodplain and therefore not be eroding its banks and carrying that sediment all the way down to, depositing it at some other places down the stream or eventually down into the La Platte. It mostly doesn't get down to the La Platte because there are places down there where the sediment was dropping out, and this is the hope that we'll have more sediment being deposited up on the floodplain. So the process was, an engineer was hired. Mylone and McBroom have worked on this for a number of years, preliminary design, then final design and construction dollars. And what they did was put in stone weirs that eventually will raise the bed level. So instead of we're allowing the river itself to raise itself up. Then there's also what's called large woody debris. Big logs were dropped and put across there. I should note that Mike says that when he started working in the highway department, there was still fishing possible.
There is fishing upstream. a
Yeah,
little
there's
bit,
fishing
some brook
upstream,
trout,
and the
yeah.
idea is creating these pools so that there's a
Yeah.
riffle pool situation happening, and eventually there'll be more. There were existing trees shading the stream, but there will be extensive replanting done. They did take some of the trees out, and then they replanted them this week and staked them. I think you had some pictures of that. So it's a really cool project. I think the River Management Division at DEC is very excited to have this project happening.
And the funding and the total cost?
The funding came from the state, and the total cost is a little over $400,000.
Wow.
Yeah. It had originally, been estimated at like $360,000, but that was like 2 years ago, and then due to kind of the huge amount of applications that they had, this project got bumped. But then in the process of getting bumped, of course, the prices go up. Dale Percy is the excavator. There was a bid process. They were the low bidders. They've been, I think, really good to work with. They worked well with Mike. All of the fill that came out of there has been taken up in large off-road vehicles. I mean, big, huge dump
Yeah.
trucks. going up that steep hill.
Yeah, you boards.
And up there, and I think Mike will probably end up being able to use,
Some of
screen
the
that
film,
and
yeah.
some of that and do that. For a while, they were using the site that is slated for CSWD
Mm-hmm.
drop-off, but as soon as CSWD moved in, they very quickly moved off-site.
Yeah.
I mean, moved to their place. And I think they're going to be, they started the last week in September. There was a deadline of October 1st for getting all river work done. That's a state.
Yes, right.
And they were able to meet with Jaron Borg and get it extended to October 4th, but I think they were actually done on October 3rd. If you remember that last week, we had a torrential downpour. I think the second day that they were working, they made some sediment control, and that seemed to work really well, and the river's been running pretty clean.
And so while the town didn't have to put any money toward it, we did design the highway project around it.
Yes, we
So
did.
there was some,
Yes,
some
the-
money put toward it in
Towards
that the
that
design,
Well, the-
allowed this to come in.
Yes, that was kind of the match, was originally it had been slated to count for the demolition of the garage, which happened pretty much a year to the day of when they actually started construction. I had the pictures of that September date when we were demolishing the garage. And so that was to be counted as match, and then we came up with there was certainly enough other stuff. But a lot of the stormwater kind of systems were also paid for through grants from DEC for the town garage and the solid waste district. So really, I think the town is getting a great deal of benefit from the grant programs from DEC, and that Lewis Creek Association is doing all the administrative work dealing with this. So it's
Great.
not going to add anything to the grants that sometimes will trigger the need for additional audits and stuff like that. Hopefully, we'll get a contract from the state before the projects, I think the projects will be finished before we actually get the contract, but cash flow is another situation,
Okay.
but the town doesn't
so-
have to worry about that.
Yeah, so will the project be done by the end of the year? I mean, all the
It will be-
planting and everything?
A lot of the planting will be done by the end of the month. The grant and the contract extends until July 2020 because some of the species of trees that are to be planted it's not advisable to transplant them in the fall.
Okay.
So the oaks and the red maples that are supposed to be going in there will be planted in
Yeah.
the spring.
So people, when they go to the CSWD drop-off center, will see this on, on the side. It
Yeah,
should look
we're
pretty
hoping
good.
that we'll have some kind of educational sign
Yeah.
there and that people can hear about it.
I was actually there at the highway garage at a meeting today, and I saw both the, that project in action as well as the drop-off center, their
Great.
construction crew, so everybody it was all
So
working.
they have their permit as well?
What's
The
that?
CSWD?
Yes, they started, their contractor is there, and they have
Okay.
been working since I think they brought things to the site around October 1st.
Yeah, I went
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
today and
Yeah.
I knew that the floodplain was going on. I
Yeah.
didn't realize CSWD
Oh, yeah,
as
they're
well. There was a
both
lot of
there.
activity.
Like that, I mean,
Yeah.
the day after
Yeah.
their meeting,
Yeah.
they were in.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's
Stuart-
It's good to have it all
We
done
won't
at
get
once.
tarred and feathered at town meeting.
But that looks really good, Andrea.
Yeah.
I was pretty impressed
And the
with
water
how it looks.
quality, I mean, the whole town, as that flows down through the Bissonnet fields, has all been sort of redone too.
Well, that's another
Yeah.
project that's
Right.
happening, there's actually 3 projects that are happening on the La Platte Headwaters
Yeah.
Town Forest.
Yeah.
If you've noticed along the fields on 116 got mowed and plowed and disked.
Yes.
And I think next week, the Nature Conservancy is going to be erecting, they have, I think, 14 different test plots well, actually, it's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is testing different ways of trying to get rid of reed canary grass to allow natural regeneration. So they're going to be testing different ways of either mowing or.
So that's
and then-
why they herald that.
Yeah, it is.
I was
Yep,
wondering about
right.
that.
And
Okay.
then the Nature Conservancy is doing some deer control research projects. So they're going to be erecting different types of fencing because, we've planted
A lot of
a couple
small.
thousand
Yeah.
trees, and then there's a UVM graduate student who's been out there counting the trees and has the amount of trees that we originally planted, and is kind of seeing which ones are doing really well, which ones have been most affected by
Browsing.
browsing,
whatever.
by deer. Some of the trees have gotten so big that the beavers are gnawing at them, which is okay because
Yeah.
those species were chosen because they will sprout back.
Yeah.
So
Good.
it's all
It's all
working.
good.
Okay.
You're looking for deer control.
Well, then, I would like to say that we are, the town, the La Platte Headwaters, the Town Forest Committee is particularly encouraging hunters
Yes,
to
this
be
year,
out
yeah.
there and in an effort to allow the deer to be a little bit more out there during the day, because it seems like at this time of year, they like to browse a little more at night. They've discouraged people from hiking and walking in an effort to get the deer to be there during the day so that when hunters are out, they will. And
And Ethan said that people don't realize that there are a lot of deer in the town forest, and he wanted to encourage people to hunt in the town forest, so pass the word around.
yeah, especially, I mean, the heavy browsing is really affecting the Hinesburg Town Forest up on the hill in terms of really not seeing much forest regeneration. And that is really the key is we want there to be forest regeneration, and we want there to be multiple diverse species regenerating. And, the deer like certain trees, but we don't want to end up with a monoculture, so.
So I actually reached out to the town forest and I believe the Trails Committee. Just questioning why they had the dates that they had. And they had an explanation about bow hunting being effective for killing doe because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't get a muzzleloader permit. But my feeling is people do avoid the town forest because of the hikers
Yes.
during the seasons.
Yes.
And that's kind of the point I was trying to make is if you want hunters to be there, just the hiking needs to stop.
Right.
Because people don't want to go in there and have somebody
Right.
walking their
Yeah.
dog along.
Yeah.
Right.
So as much as the dates were well thought out, I question whether they're going to be effective.
Right. Well, I think they've been trying to make the point that hunters have the priority.
Right.
And certainly with the Fellowship of the Wheel up in the town
They
forest
backed
up there,
off,
they are not allowed to be in
Yeah.
there during hunting
Yeah.
season. So, I mean, I think,
So Tom, are you suggesting they just close the trails entirely for everybody except hunters like they do during mud season?
I think for the firearm season, yes. Rifle and muzzleloader, I think that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck with regard to harvesting does.
Yeah.
Archery season lasts for a month this time of year, so I wouldn't expect to close.
well, I'm sure they'd be open to feedback from any
Yeah.
hunters and
Yeah, well, that's-
especially
I
from you.
gave 'em.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
good, yeah.
They've mostly been getting their recommendations from the county forester, who's
Yeah.
also a hunter.
Yeah.
So
But the
they're
10-day
trying to
muzzleloader
balance
season
it.
with as many doe tags as they're giving you now, if people knew there was a lot of doe up there, they would go up there.
Yeah,
Good.
Yep.
okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, this is a great project.
Yeah, I can say, for me, I knew this was going on. I didn't realize how
Extensive.
big of an effort it is, and I think it's really amazing. And I just wonder how can we get it out to the town that all this good
Yeah.
stuff is going on, you know?
Post the photos.
Yes.
You know, I have photos from a year ago when the garage came down, and I've been going up there every week, as well as Jessica's, and, make a little photo thing for the website or something.
Yeah.
And I
That'd be
think,
awesome.
I think something at the drop-off center, even if it's just an event, because a lot of people go there, or we'll be going back there, so that would be a good way too.
Lewis Creek Association, we're definitely planning field trips because
Yeah.
it's considered one of our ahead of the storm
Yeah.
projects,
Right.
which is entirely about, big scale projects like this to little projects that are on your own driveway or your own stream of, putting some, letting it dam up.
Yeah.
And slow, the
Slow it
principles
down.
are the 3 S's. Slow it, spread it, sink it. Water being it.
It's a pretty impressive project. I mean, I've been watching it go on paper for a long time, but to actually see it, like, wow, that is, it's very different to see it in person, to see it play out that way.
Jeff does bring up a good point to, promote this. I didn't even know the drop-off center was under construction.
Yeah.
And with all the negative feedback we've gotten, it may behoove us to put something on Front
Yeah.
Porch
Yeah.
Forum to say,
Great
this is
idea.
underway.
Yeah.
I think just in the last
And I-
week or week and a half, it's been like, we went through a big hoop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well,
So,
we'll just say that. Yes.
so all good, yeah. So we'll keep moving. The next item was the winter sidewalk maintenance policy. So there's been some adjustments, I think, to the one we reviewed last time, but we just got it in our packet, so
Yes.
we probably, I'm guessing, won't approve it necessarily since we're just seeing it, but do you
Right.
want to give a quick summary of the changes, or is it obvious what the
So I
changes are?
had Joy doing them in track changes, so
Okay.
they're in there, and so she shows exactly what changes were made, but I'll let Joy, she had conversations with VLCT, so I'll let her
Yes.
share that.
So, I'm not finding it.
I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it
I'm not
either.
seeing it in here at all, but I can, my memory's, I think, pretty
Well,
good with it.
Okay,
We made
I
a
can
few,
look, hold up.
okay, we made a few changes to the policy after conversation with the attorney at VLCT with some, not a complete overview, but suggestions. One was, instead of, we had talked about some, thank you, we had talked about some language about salting and sanding, and, oh, is it there? Can we skip down, because that's where I'm at, thank you so much. Instead of saying the no ice control.
right, we had said no, right?
Right,
Yeah.
so we went to, his suggestion was sand and salt may be used to the degree needed by the town or contractor.
Okay,
Gives us a little bit more flexibility based on the situation.
right, and I think that was the feedback you got from us, I think generally was like, well, occasionally we sand, and we might throw a little salt down somewhere if it's really, really bad. So this says we're not necessarily gonna do it regularly, but it could be used in at key spots.
Right.
Good.
And then, going back, we had originally put in there 2 inches of snow based on a previous policy I was reading. After conversations with him and the safety committee, it seemed like maybe that was a little small. Maybe let's look at 4. If we get there sooner, great, but let's give ourselves a little bit more room. That 2 inches is awfully small.
Yeah,
And then lastly, under the policy statement, we added, the reasonable efforts will be used to maintain municipal sidewalks.
and the term municipal sidewalks means all of the town sidewalks.
The town sidewalks.
Yes,
We added municipal because there are sidewalks here that are not town sidewalks.
Right.
To distinguish between the two.
so those would be like at
Lyman Meadows.
Lyman Meadows, right, those are their sidewalks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep,
Right. So those were I believe those are all the suggested changes, deletions and additions. And we did not go over with the attorney a priority schedule, but we did talk about a priority schedule of when we would address the sidewalk plowing with the safety committee. I guess it was yesterday. And came up with did you put that in there as well?
It's not in there, but I.
Okay. Well, basically, it's let's address from the bottom of the Thistle Hill community, so at the bottom of Thornbush, going on the east side of Mechanics Hill Road down to Vermont Route 116 on the east side to the Central School as first for the smaller children, and then starting at the intersection of Route 116 and CVU Road, going up there past the high school, and then coming back down Mechanicsville Road to intersect where we started. So getting that perimeter accomplished first, and then, oh, that's Silver Street, pardon me, Silver Street should not be a high priority. That doesn't look like,
That's what you sent me.
yeah, my error. So moderate priority, looking at Commerce Street, yeah, not having Silver Street there. Looking at having Commerce Street, Charlotte Road, and then Silver Street. And then the lower priorities were Ballard's Corner, Shelburne Falls Road, the new sidewalk, which we refer to as Village North Sidewalk or Commerce Street to Riggs Road. And then the last two are clearly up for conversation. The Creekside roads and the Thistle Hill roads. We know we've had some trouble maintaining
They're difficult to do.
the Thistle Hill roads. The Creekside roads are not quite as difficult.
But
Okay, you can speak to
distance,
that.
the trees around the sidewalks are the
different,
challenge.
but it's no less difficult.
Interesting, okay.
It's just very, very narrow. Obviously, it's not as steep,
Right.
but it's very narrow. The damage that can be done to lawns, the trees in particular, and then when you get a lot of snow, people have their cars parked wherever.
yeah.
It's very, very difficult in there.
And so another reason to have this conversation now, because we do have other development that's on the table. And so, once we see some of those larger developments that are proposed to the north, that's a significant add of sidewalk network. And with the same sort of issues, trees along, there's gonna be signs, there's gonna be houses, perhaps fences, or whatever it is. So we wanna really be thinking about, not just today, what we have, but what we're gonna have, see in the future, and are we gonna make any adjustments?
So that's just a good, I know the planning commission's looking at design standards.
Yes.
That's exactly why,
Absolutely.
right? Your sidewalks have to be so big,
Right.
to make room for these type of.
And those are the reasons, the purpose of me having the goals of the department head meetings. I'm trying to get those communications, so I have Alex start with the list of all the proposed development. And so I want the fire department, police department, highway, buildings and facilities, utilities, all to weigh in on that, because there's an impact to all of everyone. So I want to really be thinking about in terms of sidewalks for this conversation.
So are we looking at saying, low priority or no clearing? I mean, that's an option, right?
That is a conversation.
I do have a call into a couple of their communities to get, some more feedback. What do they do with developments? If there are associations, if there are not associations, how do they deal with that? So that we're getting some more information.
I have a question about
Sure.
Charlotte Road and Silver Street. Charlotte Road just has that little strip of sidewalk that goes down to Green Street, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And I didn't notice any sidewalk on Silver Street.
Down by Aaron's there, I use it every day.
Yeah, it goes down
Right
to
by
just.
Aaron's.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
also
very
just a
short.
little
Yeah, it's
strip?
very
yeah.
short.
It's a small section.
Okay.
So for Creekside and Thistle Hill, since I live near that area, I get it. I think we should talk to the people that live there.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
there are a ton of kids, and if we're talking about them walking around, just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
not advocating one way or the other. I kind
Yeah.
of want to,
Yeah. Oh, no, I think we
but
would.
I think we need to talk to them and let them know why
a
and what.
representative or representatives from each of those associations to the table and discuss that.
Yep.
I mean, there's one along the backside of Creekside, which might make sense to do.
It's a long one that's.
It's just
yes,
a long, fairly
right.
open.
Yeah.
There may be certain ones in these communities, not so much Thistle Hill, but Creekside.
Where it's not really someone's front yard that they might do themselves, in other words.
Right.
It's sort of yeah.
One pass through so you can walk the road a little bit to
Yeah.
get to the sidewalk and then
Yeah.
go from there. But to do every one in there is,
So.
It's too much.
So perhaps rather than taking an entire select board meetings for these discussions, maybe there could be a representative from the select board and other folks from the town who've operated the vehicles, the Toolcat, as well as representatives from each of those, you know.
Have a meeting and
And
discuss
have a
it.
meeting, let's
yeah.
talk about it, let's problem solve, let's figure out what we can do, what adjustments we can make. Is it a, let's not do them at all anymore, or is there some sort of compromise, something that we can identify what the problem areas are and how we can come together with a solution?
Waive your rights to complain about damage.
So,
Right. Well, maybe in a way, yeah.
I mean, I'm
maybe
happy
that's it.
to take the map and just mark it up with what I think
Yeah.
is appropriate. Since I ran it for
Yeah.
a couple of years,
I think
I'll
can
take
give
the
you a
barbs
map
from the
to
people in
do
the
it.
community,
Yeah.
but
I think that's a great idea, and you know, I would be open to saying here, you know, let's get the sidewalks where kids are walking to school, the main ones, people are going to
Yeah.
the store, they're doing, you know, things that people are gonna get up in the morning and do after a snowstorm. And maybe, you know, some of these, and I'm not throwing them under the bus, but maybe, you know, they're already doing their driveway one way or the other. Hey, it's, you know, 40 feet of sidewalk or 30
Right.
feet of sidewalk seems
But there are
pretty
sections
reasonable.
out there that are similar to what you're saying at Creekside, where it's a big strip
Yeah,
that
well,
nobody
and
kind
that's
of
right.
owns.
So maybe we mark it up accordingly and say, you know, certainly the sidewalk that goes to the backside of Creekside behind the Lyman's there, you know, we certainly do that, obviously,
oh, that
to
one,
get
yes.
there.
I'm
Yeah,
talking about the
yeah.
one that goes to the back
I know what you
row of
mean.
homes.
Yeah, there's sort of a
Yeah.
section there around the
Just give people
stormwater.
access,
Yeah.
limited access.
Yeah,
You know, and if I didn't think that those roads were safe for kids to walk on for short distance,
yeah,
I certainly would not
yeah.
propose cutting out the sidewalks, but I think
Yeah.
it's slow enough traffic where to get from the house to the section that might be plowed
Might be
is
okay.
reasonable.
Andrea had her.
Oh, go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, I mean, I understand this, and I think you know, you're all on the same page that we do want to encourage pedestrians, and so I think it is really important that for these future developments, that it's the width of the sidewalks, the width of the tree belts are critical, so that there is a place to put the snow. You know, the size of the driveways, I know that at Thistle, you know, in both of those, that you want, you know, we want to kind of encourage on-street parking, but at the same time, the snow, you know, the road crew can't plow it, but I think it's, you know, Burlington has steep hills, Montpelier has hills, Barry has hills, they plow their sidewalks. And so I think you need to face the reality of what is the proper fleet of vehicles that and equipment that may be needed to maintain them, because I don't want to go back on our commitment to being a walkable community.
Right.
But at the same time, to think about planning for the
Yes,
future ones, to make
absolutely.
sure they are appropriately sized and those setbacks that you
Yeah.
reference
What
are
about
there.
Bristol, do they, all those nice places to walk, all that residential area, does the town plow that, do you know?
I'm not positive. I don't know.
Because they're more our size than,
Yeah, but they're also flat.
Flat.
There's only like Mountain Street is pretty much, it's not that steep.
it's true.
All right, I think that's, since we're not ready
We're
to
not
sort of
ready.
say, here it is, but any more input, it sounds like maybe you'll mark up the map, you know, and give Joy that, and then we'll see where it stands and whether we bring, you know, have some conversations with the community.
Yeah, I mean, would someone be interested in being a select board rep on sitting with a group that includes someone who's also operated the Toolcat as well as representatives from the different developments, and to kind of talk it through and,
I could talk with them,
okay.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Bart or John, I mean, they.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I mean, it would be valuable to hear the perspective of people who've operated the Toolcat,
Yeah,
so,
sure.
So
So
the
we
people, the landowners can understand.
Yeah, I would feel a little awkward just because I live in that neighborhood.
Yes,
so.
absolutely. No, yeah, no. But I think we should definitely invite representatives from the neighborhoods too.
And then so we could go
Conversation.
over, here's the policy.
Yeah.
And then, discuss how much of the sidewalks will get covered and how they fit into the policy.
How many
Good.
communities have you looked at just to compare what their policies are, those that have them?
Well, I looked originally at Williston, Milton, Colchester, and one other. Now I've reached out to Richmond as well. And it sounds like maybe Bristol is an interesting option, a little bit flatter, but.
Yeah, but I know they've got about the same size population
Yep,
that we do.
I could do that one as well. So they'll be,
I know Essex has one.
Essex as well,
Policy.
the village I did,
Yeah, okay.
Good, yeah.
yeah.
All right, great,
All right.
thanks. Next item, are we on for number 9? The CCRP? Were we gonna?
8 o'clock is the, so he's not here yet. but,
Okay,
So we can just move to the
Yep,
next
the
thing.
next item on the agenda was the annual report from the CCRPC. There's a pretty good report in our packet that had basically all the activities around Hinesburg and all of the activities that they do. So I forget the fella's,
Charlie Baker.
Charlie Baker, isn't here, so we'll, if it's all right, we will skip this one for now and jump into the next item. And these are, the budget status report would be item number 10. So we
Yeah.
have the first quarter budget in our packet. And so this is just see how we're doing. Ideally, if it was a linear spend pattern or income pattern throughout the year, like I'm trying to think, electricity maybe kind of, or things like that, you'd expect we'd be about 25%. A lot of things are not that way. The one thing that I did notice that I would suspect would be that way was the health insurance. So we're up over 30%, 32.25%, and I would think that should pretty much be linear across. So that might be a harbinger of,
There's also
Trouble?
changes that can happen.
Right,
and
in
which
the middle
and
of the year.
have and are
Yeah.
and about to it. We're going to see it again of
Okay.
employee mix changes and things
so
like
employees
that.
get to choose what they, or if they qualify,
Right.
they can decide to go with a family plan versus no plan and get a payout.
Right.
So if those decisions along the way, and then who you might hire to replace somebody
Right.
impacts it. And will, health care costs will increase at the beginning of this year.
Yeah, so that's one thing on January 1st. So we've gotten, Blue Cross and Blue Shield is doing over a 12%
Right.
increase. So I'm also talking to MVP, just get an understanding of
Yep.
what they're, get a comparable pricing from them as well, just to see.
So we try to
what our
budget
options.
with an expectation it'll increase, because I
Yeah.
don't think it's ever gone down. And so that's another thing. So that was the one item I saw
Yeah.
that just caught my eye as a concern. I don't know if anybody else had any, or maybe you have any concerns, or things seem to be okay?
No, I don't have any concerns at this point. The healthcare one is something that I'm always worried about. It's really, it's a moving target. And so, we have people that are opting out, and sometimes changes happen during the year where they opt back in, and so they come on our insurance because perhaps their spouse or some other change happened in their life, and so they don't have their outside insurance anymore, and so they come onto the town plan. So just that change is significant.
And this is just to confirm, this is our third quarter?
This is the first, so this is the first
first
3
quarter.
months. July 1 is when it starts, so this
Oh,
is at
okay.
the end of
Thank you.
September. Yeah, so this is just reflective of July, August, and September.
Good question. So now I'll put on my opinion hat of, this health insurance is basically just out of control, in my opinion. And no matter what you think the solution is, it's out of control. Any other comments? If not, maybe we have two additional items to add to the agenda. I wrote them down here. One is the liquor license approval. So if we want to jump into that, we have to become the liquor license. So I need a motion to, what's the
The
term?
local liquor control board.
To
Convene is
convene the local liquor control board.
So moved.
I'll second it for you.
And seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we have an application for, I should pull it
TC
up.
Hospitality for a first-class liquor license. They're doing business as Good Times Cafe. So this, as I said, mentioned before.
So it's first class, yeah?
Yep, this is will be the new owner to Good Times.
So is it basically the same liquor license that Good Times has had, but?
But it
under
has to
new
go under
ownership,
the,
they
reflect
have
the
to
new
reapply?
ownership. So while the
No,
closing
no.
hasn't happened yet, this step has to be done. So when that closing happens, that transition, this new owner has a license in place.
But
so
it's just
business
the
can
same.
continue.
There are no
It's the same.
changes.
Is
There's
it?
no changes.
Yeah, so I think the Good Times just serve beer and wine.
No whiskey.
Yeah, so is that what this is, first class?
This is a first class.
Yep.
First class just means it's basically a restaurant.
Inside a
Restaurant,
restaurant,
okay,
yeah.
got
it's-
you.
Yeah, they don't sell
Okay.
it to.
And we've never heard of any issues.
So I'll make a motion to approve the first class liquor license for TC.
Hospitality.
TC Hospitality,
Doing business
doing
as.
business as Good Times Cafe.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so that motion passed. We'll have to sign them
Yep.
at the
I've
end
got
of this, so
the-
everybody has
ones
to.
to sign.
So now we need to,
So moved.
what's the right term?
So,
Get out, stop
you
being
could
the liquor.
adjourn as-
Adjourn,
as the-
yeah, close the
I think I have
liquor, local liquor control board.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
and seconded by Tom. You got those, Val? Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Cheers. All those in favor say cheers. All right, and then the other item we added? I thought I
So
wrote it
was
down
the
here.
Creekside
Oh,
closure
yes.
for Halloween night?
So it's annual for several years now.
How time
They
flies.
they ask us to, for permission to close the main road. I mean, people can still go there, but primarily not traffic. They provide parking all around for Halloween. Anthony said that they're, will provide coverage as long as they don't have any other pending emergency, so they'll help do some traffic control. It's a great event, and I assume at the fire station, they're gonna do their annual Halloween party, so it's really Halloween central for Hinesburg.
Right.
So what are the hours?
6 to 8.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve the Creekside request to close their road from the hours of between 6 and 8 on Halloween night.
Second.
Seconded by Marilee. And just to note, so there isn't any confusion, this is open to everybody.
This is just a vehicle traffic.
Right, it's just
to-
vehicle traffic, so I think basically the community opens it to the public, and if anybody wants to help donate some healthy chocolate bars, they can do so. I'm not sure where, but, so they get quite a bit of traffic through there, foot traffic,
Yeah,
scary foot traffic.
It looks like somebody else is taking it over from whoever did it last year, because they used to have the posts on Front Porch Forum.
Okay.
So I hope they do that again. 'Cause
Maybe
I-
they
that's-
will, yeah.
I think it was very popular, and it's nice not to have the burden fall on just the Creekside
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I suspect you're gonna start seeing that as we get a little closer to Halloween, so.
Yeah,
in the final.
Good.
Val, did we vote already?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we passed that.
All right.
All right. So we're moving right along. And so we'll hold up on item 9 that's okay. And we'll jump right to item 11, Town Administrator Report,
Oh.
which we had, I believe, in here,
Yeah,
in the summary, I think it was
Yeah,
there.
Right.
That's right.
so work is continued on gathering information regarding the various ambulance options. I did get, we talked with the head of Richmond Rescue, and I'd like to do a ride-along on their ambulance, and they're okay with that, just to get a real understanding of what happens. I mean, that's a significant difference of what happens from the time that it leaves Hinesburg to the hospital, or leaves wherever to the hospital, so that what happens on that ambulance and what the communications that happen between the hospital and then what documentation is being provided at the
And it
hospital.
will be as a guest, right?
Right,
I didn't know
right.
how to say it in a nice way, in a fun way.
Right, yes, I won't practice it like I was researching other things last week. So, anyway,
That's commitment right there.
You know how to do an IV drip?
what's that?
How to do an IV drip?
I'm
Get
pretty
you right in
professional
there.
at that, actually.
Okay.
Got that down.
And so maybe by the next meeting, you think you might be,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot, I think there's more that we can do. I think there's time, because November 6th is our next meeting, so that
Right.
gives us a little time to do further information.
Anything from Charlotte?
Charlotte, it would be the next one I want to reach out to, connect with Shelburne, and just get an understanding of what all of the ones in the area, to have that direct conversation.
and I'm gonna volunteer, Marilee probably be willing to help in
Yeah,
whatever way.
definitely.
And if
She's
you
been
need-
participating
yep,
in each
And if you
conversation.
need anything else,
Okay.
reach out to myself or anybody else too.
Okay, yep.
So there's a question.
I just wondered if you had noticed the post on Front Porch Forum by Lane Morrison, the former Select Board Chair in Charlotte, suggesting that since Charlotte has a rescue squad and you've got a police force, wouldn't there be some kind of a way to do some kind of cooperative?
Right.
I didn't see that. I guess that was just in Charlotte, didn't?
Yeah, I
carry
didn't see
over
that.
into
I think it was
Hinesburg.
just posted in Charlotte, but I've heard about it. It's an interesting idea.
I thought it was
So we'll do direct outreach with Charlotte, as
Yeah.
well as, Shelburne, and just trying to make sure we've made a complete loop with all of the
Okay.
people involved.
Good.
So,
All right?
Oh, Charlotte, yep.
oh,
Oh, okay.
he had to go to other board meetings
Yeah,
before this,
right.
so.
Want to continue down, or do you
Hey,
want to
Cheryl.
wait? Should we go ahead and jump
Oh,
right in?
I can continue on.
If we can finish this, that would be good.
All right, so the FY21 budget process has begun, as you know. Lots of work has happened and much more ahead. So all of, the department heads have received their budget worksheets, or at least with all of the list of supporting documentation, and to really be thinking about not only FY21, but 5-10 years out of what their department looks like, what the needs are, and with the focus on, really taking care of our buildings, looking for further ways for energy efficiency, and so those were the goals.
And I just appreciate, I've been, not for 20 years, but a few years here, and the first budget processes we had were basically, we were presented with, we've worked through with the departments, and here's the budget. But now, having the discussions with the departments ahead of time, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
So at least we're one step ahead with understanding, and so I think that it's a better process than it was in years past, I think.
And and my goal for this, and having the adopted department, the 2-year cycle, is just for you guys to be able to be further embedded into a specific budget that you are gonna end up reporting out on at town meeting. And so you have a real understanding of what's happening in those departments, what their needs are, and to be able to advocate for, maybe there's something that's a big dollar item that is potentially gonna be cut. but you could advocate and support those reasons, or you could say, oh, you know, whatever, you have a better understanding. And also the department heads, that's something that's been communicated to me since I started, is they'd really like to have select board members come into their departments, get an understanding what their work is like. So I think we're achieving those goals. Village North Sidewalk. Again, I get to give good news.
Yeah.
Progress continues. It's happening. We're starting to see what looks like a pathway that's going to go from Commerce Street to Riggs Road. So, and the bridge abutments.
is up,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
The bridge
So-
itself.
The bridge is there.
the bridge
Yeah.
itself is there, was, yep, delivered,
looks
so it's been, lots of work on that. Health insurance, as I mentioned before, I'm gonna do some price comparisons due to the increasing healthcare costs. Coordinating efforts between the Hinesburg Revolving Loan Fund Committee and the Addison County Economic Development Corporation. I met with the representative of Addison County Economic Development Corporation yesterday, and then I met with a member of the Revolving Loan Fund Committee today, just to get those final documents all prepared, so I can pass on to the attorney to get the closing documents. Paving, we've seen a lot of paving that's happened in
Yeah.
town. They're still working on, finishing that up, but, so a lot of good improvements have been made with respect to that. So that's really all I had highlighted.
All right, any other questions for Renee?
Great
Thanks,
to see
yeah.
Commerce Street done.
Yeah, that one was due.
All right, and
So
so.
All right.
Charlotte Road,
Yeah,
part of it,
Commerce
Commerce
Street.
Street.
a little bit of Shelburne
I thought
Falls.
Shelburne Falls Road, the far end,
What's
I
that?
thought that was on the schedule too.
Yeah, yes, I think that's on the schedule for this year too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
sort of finishing up that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
Good.
then striping, hopefully, before the winter,
yeah.
get the right weather. All right, so
All right.
we're gonna
Get
jump
that
back
Stripe
to,
special
item 9, the CCRPC annual report. Yeah, come on up.
Charlie Baker,
And
Mike,
Mike,
he's
you can
our
come up.
representative.
Yeah. So this is we get this annual report, I guess, every year.
Yep.
And the report in our packet, I thought, was very good. It really shows the Hinesburg activities, so that's helpful, and a good review to see what's been going on and what is going on and what's planned to go on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I won't, I'm not gonna read this to you. Yeah, I know you'll can do that. But really, this is as much as anything, a customer service call, so we provide services to the towns. The towns make up our board, and so I just wanna check in with you, review the report real briefly. The first page gives you background about the board, who our membership is, how we finance or leverage state and federal funds for our budget, who your reps are on our,
And I guess
who your reps were.
we could go over that.
I did.
So,
Yes.
and so
They
Andrea
swap.
Morganti and, well, Mike is our
The representative.
representative
Yes.
to the main level, CCRPC.
Yep.
Andrea's the alternate.
She's the alternate now, yeah.
And then for the Quack, Mary Lee is our rep there. And for transportation, it is
Richard Watts.
Richard Watts, right. So does that cover all of our?
Yep.
And then Alex.
And
for the
Alex on our
planning side.
planning advisory
Yeah.
committee.
So we have good representation.
Yes, you do. We
And
appreciate it.
do all the towns have their full boards in place like ours, or?
You mean they're full, all the
Yeah.
slots?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. We send out a request probably, I don't know, April, May,
Yeah.
after town
Yeah.
meeting day. And usually we get them back, by June-ish.
Yeah.
So I think, I can't think of any towns that haven't responded yet, so. I think the board's pretty well represented, and we certainly appreciate having Mike, there as your representative, and Andrea was on. I feel like we didn't do enough to recognize Andrea, she didn't leave the board
Right.
fully, because she's still
Right.
the alternate,
Right,
but
right.
I think she's been on our board maybe 20 years. Yeah, or maybe I don't know how long she was on the select board.
She still keeps coming. I'm just joking, yeah.
I don't know, you can decide whether she gets a vote or not, but
Yeah.
Then on this report, you still have Andrea as the representative.
this is
and Mike
FY '19.
Okay.
So this is looking backwards towards,
Okay.
to last fiscal year, and actually, thanks for that comment, actually, it's a improvement you'll see next year, is I'm gonna show you who was and who it
Okay.
is. Because, yeah, that was a little confusing, so I appreciate that. On the second page, you kind of noted, we kind of detailed some specific things that we did with the town in terms of the South Village Sidewalk project, and worked with Richard on this Route 116 bus outreach and the intersection improvement at 116 and Charlotte Road. And some other things. Happy to get any feedback on any of those things.
Yeah, so the bus thing is, a final report will come out at some point.
Yeah, I think I
well,
just
it
saw a
says-
note about that pretty
Yeah.
pretty soon,
In early FY '20, yeah?
which is, I guess I'll say we're still in that.
Yeah.
We just finished the first quarter.
First quarter.
Yeah,
Yeah, first
Yeah.
third, yeah. So that should come out soon. I kind of make a note to nudge that. And make sure it gets back to you all. And the next page kind of deals more with actual like capital projects. Some I think I just heard mentioned, like the Village North Sidewalk. And
and the Village South is in the process, right? I mean, so that seemed to, well, we've been talking about it a couple of years, but it seems like it's, moved along at a pretty good clip.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
don't
I've
know if
learned
you'd say
tonight that it
clip.
takes about 7 to 10 years for
Yeah.
the V-Trans to get everything together. And
Yeah.
Learning curve
yeah,
tonight.
you're
Yeah.
doing fast,
Yeah.
7 to 10 years, that's,
Yeah,
No, that's what they were talking about. Was something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we just reviewed at our board meeting,
Yeah.
just some, it wasn't anything special about those
Right.
projects, we just plucked a few of like, what's a typical timeline, and, because people, I think, feel like a sidewalk project should take, they should be done maybe 2 years,
Yeah,
3
2
years,
years,
and, the reality is, once we get these grant funds in and federal funds, if you were gonna do it yourself as a town, you
right,
could probably do it in one season.
yeah.
But once you start to get these federal funds, and more environmental reviews and more V-Trans reviews, I think, and just getting on the capital program for V-Trans,
And Charlie, that's a big problem, I mean, that's a big issue that we've, faced, especially with these sidewalk projects, Village North being a prime example. We got that grant funding, I believe, in 2012.
Yep.
And so those price estimates were back in 2012.
off,
Yep.
yeah.
And so 2019, it isn't reflective, and so now we've
Saw
got to.
some of that
No,
tonight too.
There was a lot of pushback on that. I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of, we know those are there,
That's it.
but understand. So to defend V-Trans a little bit, don't shoot me, is they have a big bubble they're trying to work through.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
will get on they believe they'll get on a more steadier track.
so they think they're making progress to,
Yeah, so they're really working towards getting all the ones on the table done, and then slowly create, they're creating a value system so that they can get more projects on a steadier keel. Did I phrase that right?
Yeah.
I got that impression tonight, they're really, really trying to do that.
Yeah.
But they inherited a huge bubble. And they
yeah.
used that
What
several
what
times.
caused the bubble? Was it,
They're just, I think the way they
Yeah.
talk about it is they call them legacy projects.
Yeah.
That have been kind of planned for 30 years. I mean, frankly, the Cirque was one of those,
Yeah.
right? And that got tabled.
yeah,
And,
but it
and we
took
were
up
talking
a
about the
lot of
alternative.
resources
Yeah.
during that time.
Yeah, right, tons of resources, but the Champlain Parkway going into
Yeah.
Burlington is one that was, I think that was planned 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the construction still hasn't started.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what's driving your extra cost too, and they acknowledge that.
Yeah.
We have one right up there, the CV 116 improvement, has been on the books for a long time, but that's
Oh,
and-
the
and they
four-way,
reckon-
yeah, the light.
and they
yeah.
recognize that it'll cost more, but they just trying to prioritize the ones that.
Yeah. Can you, just for my own and maybe everybody else's education, like if we talk about a sidewalk project, just how does the CCR, does the CCRPC have to be involved? if we go for a grant and do all that? I mean, the typical process
No, I
for
think
that.
We're really, I was, in those cases, I think of us as just supplemental staff, like, if we can help,
Yeah,
and take some load off of your staff, writing a grant application, at the early stage.
And like
Or
the
at the later
preliminary
stage,
design
being a
work.
project manager. Yeah, well, we can hire a consultant, to do, more design work or preliminary design.
preliminary design.
We don't have money for the final design
Yeah.
or for construction. But, we certainly can help you apply for grants
Matching
to
grants.
transfer that. And then I think one of the things we've been trying to do more of lately is if we can help with the project management stage and really supplement your staff.
Yeah.
Which is how we kind of view it as we're just, so nothing that you have to take advantage of. So we're a resource if you want to and if it helps.
It feels like, though, if we have the CCRPC has done some preliminary work, in a way, and at the end, there's some recommendations, here's what to do. It seems like it's more than just the town saying,
Yeah.
this looks like a good project, and it,
Can I jump on that real quick?
yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things I've learned is that when Alex comes to you and talks about projects for the next budget cycle, he usually includes me in that conversation. I think what I would do is to look at them in a different way. Instead of, well, what would we like to do? I would talk to him, is there a way we can figure out to continue this project forward? And through grants
to
and
try to,
something
like,
like that.
push some of the ones that are
Well, that
already
Jericho
underway.
thing jumped on me tonight when
Yeah.
we were talking about how they used a piecemeal approach to get a big project done. And I think that's, as somebody who talked about that, I would encourage you to look more that way instead of just saying, well, this is different, let's try this, look, and kind of maybe get one done instead of looking at two. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that does. Because we have a lot of studies that
We do.
nothing's,
do.
well, maybe the
done
sidewalk
a
to
lot
the
of
south,
Well,
the sidewalk to the south, we did a study, it's a little different what's happening, but I think it helped. 'Cause some of that preliminary stuff is done.
Yeah, so, by breaking it up, we might be able to get a little more grants and things like that. I lost my train of thought here. One of the other things I'm fortunate about committees is I'm on the UPWP, which plans all the projects and the costs. So I've learned a lot about the projects and what's out there, so. But I think that, like I said, if I was gonna talk tonight, I would talk to Alex and bring a idea to you. I would say, let's work on one of the projects we have and try to work to, especially the, the other thing that struck me when I was on this committee was last year, Shelburne didn't put any requests in because they felt they had enough in the queue where they needed to move forward.
Yeah, right.
And that's kind of where, that really triggered that thought in my mind, and then tonight even reinforced it even more.
Just because there's funds available that we can tap into, why put another project that you might not be able to do on the table?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you look at the whole system, and starting with planning funds and then design funds and construction funds, we have more planning funds available than can actually, if that would be 10%, say, of the construction funds, we have more planning funds than we can actually
Right.
construct.
Right.
And so, sometimes when I talk about this, and I kind of joke or make fun of my staff a little bit. I'm like, okay, we planned it enough out. Like, let's see how we can help
Get
get
these
things
done.
Yeah.
delivered.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And so,
We've
yeah,
talked
if we,
about that quite
Yeah.
a few times
Yeah.
as well. How many projects do we want to start without completing any of them?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so just to throw some numbers out, with $10,000 to study this project as our share, why put another $10,000 on another project that we don't do? Let's take that
Right.
$10,000 and put it towards
And
this, something like that.
if
I'm
at the
throwing
end,
numbers
I
out.
mean, when you do the planning, at the end, we have to be honest and say, yeah, it sounds great, and it would be good, but, maybe, look at the cost or look at the whatever. This may not be as important as something we already have in the queue. Let's push toward that.
Exactly.
and, and with everything, we're prioritizing our resources.
Yeah.
And you obviously are doing that as well. And, I think it's, do you want to divert some more to start something else?
Yeah.
And so whichever stage, however we can help, I think just because we have planning money doesn't mean we
That's
need to
the
start
thing,
another
yeah.
project that won't get done.
Right.
And so, yeah, we've been, you know, and I've had my staff go back and look at like all the scoping studies we've done over, since, over the last 20 years. And it's actually not a bad track record, like maybe about half of them have gotten, I don't know. Maybe I've rationalized it. Maybe it is bad, I don't know. But half of them have actually like turned into a project, and actually gotten built. But that means half of them didn't, and,
Right.
and maybe half of them we did some study on, but it really wasn't a priority for the community at the end of the day, which is okay. Just because we've spent little money doesn't mean we have to spend big money on what isn't a good project. So,
Yeah.
but I think that's what you guys are doing all the time.
That's a great point, Mike.
Yeah. And then the last couple, 2-3 pages are more regional activities that we do without regard to any one municipality. Looking at our regional plan. Legislative breakfast is coming up December 10th. Put that on your radar. Involved with a bunch of different things: housing, clean water, emergency management, energy. Happy to answer any questions or get any feedback on any of those items without going down too many rabbit holes myself.
Yeah, there's a lot here.
Yes, sorry about that.
No,
but,
that's all right.
But I also just,
I'm impressed.
wanted you to be aware of things, like the elderly and disabled transit service. We just are finishing up kind of a review of that service. I know that's probably been a little bit of a challenging service here in Hinesburg, where Hinesburg
That's all right,
rides,
yeah.
and then you're in age well, and it's really a challenge. And Chittenden County is the only county in the state where we have really different eligibility rules for different towns. It's because different towns participated in different ways. I don't know if we'll ever get to fully rationalizing it, because as I dig into that a little bit more, I realize some towns want special services or not as much services and pay less. And so I don't know if we'll ever get to a more consistent level of service across the county, but I think you guys are now with AgeWell kind of partnered up, I believe.
Yes.
And so you're probably heading towards that more consistent level of service. So.
I'm on the Green Mountain Transit Board, and
Are
it's
you? Okay.
difficult because there's a lot of different communities
Yeah.
and a lot of pieces to it. And, it's, one day I can rationalize, we got all these let's just make them all one. And then it seems simple. But each community has, a way they'd like to do things, and you wouldn't want to, that isn't necessarily the answer. So it's a difficult way to find cost effectiveness and make it fair. But, taking the community out, it's the same way with schools, right? By regionalizing all the schools sounds really good, but when a school comes out of a community that, it's their one community building and now it's gone, I don't know if that's
It'll be
necessarily
challenging.
good.
And there's definitely going to be more stress on that system. I mean,
Yeah,
no offense to anyone, but,
We're
some
all
of us are
aging.
getting older.
yeah.
And, the demographic trend is definitely
Well,
going to,
I
we
think
got a bubble going on there.
The requested services is too. So I think that's two ways of grabbing it.
Another resource that we've gotten from CCRPC that's not mentioned here are conference tables.
Is this
Do you
that?
recognize these? Yes.
They look so comfortable.
Look at that.
We haven't been able to get anything done since we've been using them.
There you go.
50%
These are
of
all
what
study
we.
tables. Hopefully they're,
They all like-
that they didn't get too much of the planning in there. You can use them for whatever you want.
There
So
we
good,
go.
I'm glad we were able to get those to you. Good.
Any other questions? Thank you for the report. I encourage everybody to take a look at it. It is quite extensive, and it's really a lesson of what's going on at the CCRPC. So,
Yeah, one thing that, I don't know if you guys ever use a community justice center, like maybe through Williston maybe, or
There's
or
been
something.
talk, we have, I believe we did receive some benefit or have
Yeah.
someone from
through
that do
that
some
program.
work, yeah.
And I just mentioned that, like, that's just something I got sucked
Yeah.
into in the last couple months of, we're gonna have a little summit with all the community justice centers in the county and talk about, but same conversation. we have 5 justice centers.
Yeah.
How do we provide that service more
Yeah.
effectively and cost effectively? And I don't know, who
Maybe
knows?
take 2 seconds to explain what it is.
Um,
Community justice.
I wish I
Maybe
knew
not 2
totally,
cents.
but, so I think the idea is, they've been trying to, when they're dealing with somebody who maybe committed a smaller level crime,
crimes.
they're trying to, instead of, maybe 20 years ago it would have been, you're doing jail time and you're on probation or whatever it might be, they're trying to divert into more of a community justice center and restorative justice
and
type
working
process
with
where they
who
like,
was offended and finding
Yeah.
a balance.
Yeah.
We did that for a while, about maybe 10 or 15 years ago. There was a little bit of that. I don't know
here.
if
Yeah,
it was,
I remember that now.
and the Department of Corrections was doing grants, and I think they've been, the grant dollars that they've been putting out to the municipalities have been kind of slowly either staying the same or shrinking, and of course the costs have been going up, because they're paying this people,
Right.
they're paying
Yeah.
staff, and so, there's like a lot of other parts of the
Yeah,
governmental system, there's pressure on the
stretched,
budgets.
yeah.
So sorry, it was just like another topic,
No, that's
not on
good.
this list, and
Yeah.
we're getting into in FY '20, so.
yeah. All right,
There is something out here that was done ahead of schedule.
Uh-oh.
The cattle pass.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did that earlier than we
Yeah,
thought.
they did it a few
Checked
weeks
out.
ago.
20, yeah, okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did it.
Uh-oh, we're out of date.
Look
We're not,
at
we're not
that.
caught up with you. Yeah,
Full
good.
year ahead.
Yeah.
We're starting to move fast here.
Don't
in
do that,
Hinesburg.
Step through.
Don't pay any attention to us, just do it. Good. Well, thank you very much, I
All
appreciate
right,
the time.
thanks a lot. Yeah, I
Thanks for
appreciate
your
it.
patience on your
No problem.
agenda here.
Yeah, not a
Absolutely.
problem.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Mike.
Stay dry.
Yes.
Is it windy out there?
Congrats on the new grandkid, Mike.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, a few weeks ago.
All right, so we'll keep moving. Next item is item 12, Select Board Forum and correspondence received. That's something new we've added. Is there anything in particular?
There were a couple items from Alex, and I don't think I got those.
Yeah, I don't think they got put
added.
in there yet.
Yeah, let me just see if I can.
This
Pull
probably
those
is
out.
with the town map and then the zoning.
I think there were a
Changes?
couple of other things. You guys
Oh.
can go ahead and I'll look,
All right.
mention other things if you
Was
have
there-
them.
Did anybody have anything with Select Board Forum?
I have one.
Yeah.
So I was up at the Bissonnet Fields tonight, doing my last, kind of end of the year fertilization and whatnot. And somebody had brought pumpkins up, and I'm not
yeah,
sure
I
if it was
saw
for the memorial or what they were for, but they were smashed all over the place. The candles that were inside were left there. It's a little frustrating that anybody would do that. I'm sure they were brought there for a good reason.
Right.
But to just smash them like that and leave them there, it's going to lead the Recreation Commission to make hard decisions if that's going to be the case, and limit access as necessary. So if you're up there and you bring things in, make sure you take them out,
Yeah.
so that we don't have any more of this.
Yeah.
So Tom, I was there early Monday morning doing water sampling on Little Platte tributaries, and I saw those pumpkins. There's some kind of gray shed or something,
Yeah.
and there were some on top and some were smashed.
That's
Did
what it was.
Did it get worse than that? Did it get
No, I'm
spread
sure it
out?
was the
Okay.
same, but
Okay, so that was Monday morning that I
Yeah.
saw it.
yeah.
I don't know.
It's today, Wednesday.
I-
Yeah, probably.
I don't
just
know
don't know.
what service memorial they had where they would have had the pumpkins.
There was one up there for Paul Hoppner
Yeah, okay,
last
yeah,
week, I
because
believe
that was
it was.
last Thursday,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not sure if those
Yeah.
pumpkins were there for that or if they were there for something
Okay.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just know that they were demolished and left there.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything?
I want to say that I did send out the letter to the ambulance exploratory committee, bringing it
Oh,
to a
okay.
conclusion, and I did get one nice feedback from a member
good.
asking to stay informed. And then I did put our summary link to it on Front Porch Forum and mentioned Scooter's really well-written, thorough
Yes.
article that was in the Citizen, and I did get one response from Maggie. What's her last name?
Gordon,
No, Eggleston, I think.
Epstein.
Epstein, that's it, yep. And it was clear she'd read the report, she and her partner, because they gave really reasonable suggestions for how to proceed forward.
Oh,
So
good. So we can maybe add that to the overall packet, I guess, yeah.
How
The
would I
feedback.
do
Well,
that?
Well, you can share, you and I can talk about it,
Yeah.
and we can see how we can incorporate it.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So I was happy that, that I had put that out there. One of these workshops that I went to a while ago, VCLT, about disagreements in town or hot issues, it said, the presenter made a point that if you invite people to comment and you tell them what the issue is, it doesn't really matter if anybody comments, that the fact that they've been invited, that really makes people feel included.
yeah, that's a
So-
good point. So you don't necessarily have to comment, just the fact that if I really felt strongly about this, I could.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Good. All right, great. And one more plug for Chicken Pie Supper, which is the 26th of October. You better call for reservations, and there is takeout, so if you want that.
All right, so I think I may have forwarded this to you by email, but, so one of them was the Planning Commission, they recommended that the town update previous village area stormwater studies based on the latest information for development projects proposed in the area, Hinesburg Center 2, Haystack Crossing, Blomstron, Donovan O'Donnell, Hannaford, et cetera. And so he attached minutes to that. Prior village area stormwater studies were completed in 2010, 2012, and 2015. All of these studies utilized the expertise of Maloney and McBroom. 2 were done in collaboration with the Lewis Creek Association. Funding came from a variety of grant and local funding. Vermont Clean and Clear Grant, Water Grant Funding, Vermont Municipal Planning Grant, and the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. You'll likely see a proposal to update and build on these stormwater studies in my proposal of the FY 2021 Planning and Zoning Budget.
And this was Alex?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that was one of his things. And update on the Richmond Road intersection scoping study
yeah.
update. So they've developed a committee. He's looking for a select board member to be part of that project team. They had their kickoff meeting, and they had consultants from Du Bois and King as CCRPC staff, and also Mike Anthony, Alex, and other folks that were on that. And so they're looking to do that starting in January, and if there was a select board member that would like to participate in that.
Okay. I think that's,
Just
yeah.
looking.
All right.
So those were the things.
And it's 3 to 4 meetings to go through?
So, public meeting in January, project team meeting in February to review alternatives, public meeting in February or March to get public feedback on alternatives, and then a project team meeting in March or April to settle on an alternative. Might be done via email.
Okay.
So,
I'd be willing to do that.
That'd
I've
be
got a
nice.
little background on what's going on there.
okay.
So,
And I,
you know.
I see this as, we were just talking about trying to finish projects, right? We got
Yep.
that giant project of connecting that down to the CVU corner, and maybe this could be just a start anyway, so.
I wonder
that.
if Ray Nails would be interested in at least hearing about this, because
Maybe.
he was pretty passionate
Yeah.
about that project.
I think he and Andrea have been doing the outreach to the landowners along that Richmond Road.
Speaking of the Richmond Road, I have one more thing to bring up. So if you drive North Road, head toward Richmond, or I guess it'd be the Richmond heading back toward Hinesburg. Where you hit the Hinesburg line, the speed limit is 30 or 35 miles an hour. Pretty slow for
It's 45 in Richmond. Coming.
45 down to 30 or 35.
Yeah.
But then when you get to Triple L Trailer Park, it turns to 40. So it's kind of a backward situation.
Yeah.
Because actually the road, the part of the road where you should be able to go faster has a slower speed limit.
Yeah.
Which is really slow for that stretch of road, in my opinion.
So
Yeah.
that 40 is on North Road though, right?
No.
The 40 is on North Road.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it starts
Yeah.
at the trailer park.
Yeah, but once you get onto North Road.
Right, but
And
the Richmond
Richmond
Road
Road is-
part,
Before that is 35.
kind of from Swamp Road,
Yeah.
Swamp Road
35.
area
Yeah, it's
to
35,
McGee
right.
Hill.
I've heard people comment on that same.
So I just wanted to bring it up
Yep.
officially because I've been hearing about it from my family, but
Yeah.
it does seem to make sense, or it makes no sense that it's that slow on that stretch.
Uh-huh,
Only
And
to
then
speed
speeds
up
up, yeah.
later in a more residential area.
Right.
yeah.
So
No, I've
maybe that's
heard that.
something the chief could address. And
Yeah, maybe
I've heard
that's
we can make a
something.
change.
Yeah, great. All right, anything else? No, so next is reviewing the minutes from the 7th of October. We'll need a motion. Q,
I
Aaron.
can make a motion to approve the minutes from October 7th as amended if needed.
And that's seconded. So I looked at it, I didn't look at it that close, I looked at it, but not with an editing eye.
I just found one thing on the bottom of page 2, the last sentence. Alex will let the planning commission, I think no was left out. Alex will let the planning commission know about the items discussed. It's up to the select board to warn the public hearing. But everything else looked really good, and it's really well done, Val.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I find it very helpful.
And good summary on the ambulance thing, so was helpful. Any other comments? All right, so with that one amendment, all those in favor of approving the minutes from October 7th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so we pass that motion. Next item is the warrants.
Make a motion to approve the warrants as submitted by the town clerk to include payroll.
Second.
And there's a second. I didn't review them this
You want
week,
to?
but there's two.
Yeah,
already
Marilee and I
signatures,
got
so,
'em.
yeah. So they've been looked at. All those is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the warrants, including payroll, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any other business?
Gosh, is my watch wrong?
I know, we are
There's a
gonna write
motion
this
to
down.
adjourn, and is
I'll
that
second.
seconded? Seconded by Aaron.
13 minutes early.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Thank you very
Aye.
much.